Peace, this your host Selah-Shalom, and this is a Cosmon Teachings in the Words of Jehovah and His Angel Ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible OAHSPE. Now the topic of discussion today is called Debunking the Flat Earth Theory. Now it's a new trend floating around that the earth is flat, re-emerging the 14th century old lie. Now when we deal with those who believe in this flat earth, they cannot show you an actual rendering of the earth being flat, except through a picture that has either been drawn or computer generated. They will show you pictures like these to try to justify that the earth is flat. And one of their favorite is this logo here, which shows the earth flat. But again, we have pictures only. So we still have no proof of a flat earth other than drawings and computer generated pictures. So truthfully, that alone kills their whole argument. It's not that deep. Now let's see where this idea started from. These ideas of a flat earth started with the Egyptians and Babylonians, then to the Hebrews, the Greeks, Romans, Latin, and English. Now, in order to know if the earth is flat or not, you would have to have viewed it from outer space to prove that to be true. And being that no man has been to outer space in the ancient times, there is no way for man to prove that. So now, who inspired man to believe that the earth was flat or circular in the first place? The only ones who could give that answer are those who have borne witness on an atmospheric or etheric level, and the only ones who can make that claim would be the angels. It would have to be the angels through inspiration to reveal to man if the earth is flat or spherical. Now let's go to the root of this idea, which would be the Egyptians and Babylonians. Now when we look at the Egyptian concept of earth, again, we have a drawing. So this cannot be taken literal. But what we have here is Nun, which is supposed to be representing the primordial waters, the firmament, and laying on the ground is symbolic of the earth, which is Geb, pseudoscience we're dealing with here. So this would show a flat earth and a dome covering, and this is the root of the flat earth theory coming out of Egypt, and in return the Greeks learned from the Egyptians. So now this idea is passed down to them. Now the Babylonians had this idea because the Amuna Elish, being the Babylonian creation myth, is where the biblical concept is rooted in. In the text they describe a flat earth and a dome covering, which most believe to be the description of the earth. In the Amuna Elish chapter 4 verse 137 and 138 it states, verse 137, he split her, Hermia and Tiamat, up like a flat fish into two halves. Verse 138. One half of her, Tiamat, is established as a covering for heaven. So here it's referring to a flat earth and a dome covered heaven. So even the ancients in that particular time in history believed in the flat earth theory. And from these two nations, the Egyptians and Babylonians gave way for the Greeks, the Romans, the Latin, and on down the English to believe this theory. But keep in mind, no man has been to space during the times these accounts were given. These accounts were given through inspiration, and the inspiration given was from the angels, inspiring man in that day. Just because the ancients spoke it, don't mean it was correct. There were lies in the ancient world who wrote down lies, no different from today. Now it was time to put the nail in the coffin and expose how this came about in the first place. Now, during the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of mortals, between 4th millennium BC and 1550 BC, that's the length of the 23rd arc cycle. And this is the time period when these ideas was given to mortals. And this is the same time period that coincide with the wars against the Creator, or the wars against Jehovah. What a coincidence. Now, before I expose the angels that came up with this flat earth theory and inspired man to believe this, let me first prove the earth is globular, based off the Creator's cosmological order. Now, first, using your own eyes, when we observe the moon, it is clear that the moon is spherical. And when we look at the sun under a certain tint, you can clearly see the spherical image of the sun as well. So the sun and moon are proven to be spherical and not flat with just pure observation of your own eyes. So that alone kills the whole flat earth theory with just that alone. Because if the earth was flat, it will have to reflect in the cosmological order. You don't see nothing in the cosmological order that shows you a flat planetary body. If you was to look at the moon, it will show you a square. It'll show you that it is flat just based off pure observation. But we don't see that. What we have is a spherical, globular shape of the moon, likewise with the sun. So just through pure observation kills the flat earth theory with just that alone. So you're going to have a spherical sun and a spherical moon and a flat earth. That don't make no sense at all. One thing with the order of creation is that it is consistent. It doesn't contradict itself. But these flat earth theorists are in all contradiction because the stories are not consistent. One person has his idea, another person has their idea of how the earth is flat. But when something is consistent, there's one consistent answer. 1 + 1 is 2. You can go across the planet and ask that question and get the same answer. Consistency is the key. But if you're getting different answers, that's inconsistency, and it does not go hand in hand with the Creator. Now let me prove the earth is spherical based off the Creator's cosmological order using the OAHSPE. Now in the book of Jehovah chapter 3, verse 2 and 3, it states, "Man look upward in prayer, desiring to know the manner of all created things, both on earth and in heaven." So here you have man answering the question with how things are created. And Jehovah answered him saying, verse 3, "The whirlwind made I as a sign to man of the manner of my created worlds." The whirlwind. The whirlwind is spherical. "As thou beholdest the power of the whirlwind gathering up dust of the earth and driving it together, know that even so do I bring together in the Ajah, in the Jaya, and nebula, in the firmament of heaven. By the power of the whirlwind created I the corporeal suns, moons, and stars. And I commanded man to name the whirlwinds in the Etherian firmament, and he called them vortices and walks, according to their shape called he them." Now, it stated the whirlwind is of the manner of the Creator's creation. Again, showing you consistency, because when we look into creation, we see this example through the whirlwind, through tornadoes, through hurricanes, cyclones, and in the cosmos, galaxies. You see the spiraling whirlwind. Consistency. See that? One consistent order. And then the verse stated, "By the power of the whirlwind, being the vortex, created the sun, moon, stars." And as I stated earlier, the sun and the moon is spherical due to plain observation, coinciding with the vortex which produced it. See that? So even OAHSPE is giving you the science that planetary worlds are created globular, spherical, not flat. It doesn't add up in cosmological order. Verse 4, "By the power of rotation, swift driving forth in the extreme parts condense I the atmospherian worlds that float in the firmament, and these become my corporeal worlds. In the midst of the vortices made I them, and by the power of the vortices I turned them on their axis, and carried them in the orbits I alluded to them. Wider than to the moons of a planet have I created the vortices, and they carry the moons also." So now, we have again the vortex being responsible for producing the earth and its atmosphere. Semblance to the vortex being spherical or globular. Nothing mentioned here being flat at all. Now, verse 6, "For each and every corporeal world created I a vortex first, and by its rotation and by the places in the firmament whether it traveled, caused I the vortex to conceive the corporeal world." Now, the one thing that kills the flat earth theory is that they never mention the vortex, which is the foundation and first cause of all created planets, sun, moon, and stars. With that missing, you have lost the argument already. Because how are you going to speak on a flat earth and not mention the vortex that produces the earth? See that? If you were aware of the vortex, you would know that a flat earth cannot be supported by a spherical or globular vortex. Even in the Bible, it never mentioned the vortex, the very first cause of all created objects. in the cosmos: planets, sun, moon, and stars. So even in the creation story in the Bible, it's false, because it doesn't give you the rudimentary cause and root of how planets are coming to existence. Now, verse 7. A great vortex created I for the sun, and within this vortex and subject to it made I the vortices of many of the corporeal worlds. The sun's vortex I caused to rotate, and I gave it power to carry other vortices within it. According to their density and position are they thus carried forth and around about the sun. So here it's showing you the order of our solar system. First, the vortex produces the sun, which is spherical, and in return the sun's vortex produces smaller vortices within it, which in return produces planets, which are spherical and is subjected within the sun's vortex. See, your scriptures, the Bible don't even make no mention of this level of creation. So you are dumbed down and ignorant to this fact, and you are going off a misconception and an inconsistent theoretical belief of the earth being flat. It's not supported in nature. It's not supported in reality. It's only supported in theoretical belief. So the sun is the father and mother of all planets, being the children of the sun, subjected to it. And every child takes on the features of their mother and father. So in this case, the planets being spherical take on the shape of that which produced them, the vortex of the sun, which is spherical. See that? Now, in the book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, chapter 1, verse 2, it states, the earth floateth in the midst of a vortex, the outer extremity of which is somewhat beyond the moon. The vortex is globular, showing you once again that the OAHSPE supports a spherical planet and is consistent. So again, if the vortex is globular, so would be the earth, in semblance of that which produced it. See that? When you're born, you take on semblance of your mother and father. So the earth takes on the semblance of that which produced it, being a vortex, being spherical and circular and globular. So according to the order of creation, which is consistent, it shows us that the vortex is the first cause of all creation, sun, planets, moons, and stars. And the sun, planets, moons, and stars are spherical in semblance to the vortex which produced it. So now it's proven the earth is spherical due to the general order of all creation, which the OAHSPE Bible shows and proves on this issue. I would like to see you pull out the Bible and challenge these verses concerning creation about the earth and the vortex. So to the flat earth theorists, you really think the creator is going to create everything spherical in creation and then make a flat earth? I would love to see your logic behind that and consistent with cosmological order. See that? Your argument makes no sense. Now, according to the Bible, God is not the author of confusion, and it's clear those believing in a flat earth theory are the author of confusion on this subject matter. Now, how did this confusion come about? As stated earlier, it was the fallen angels of the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of mortals, from 4th millennium BC to the 15th century BC. That's the time period of the 23rd arc cycle. And this is the time period the Egyptians and Sumerian rose to power due to the influence of the gods of that day. Now, to those who are familiar with the OAHSPE, you already know. Now, the angel Anu-Hassad, styled Lord God in Dice, was the angel responsible for this ideology. When this false god rose to power, he made up his own creation tale, as stated in the Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 26, verse 12 and 13. It states, verse 12, to declare my doctrine and creation before you, that all the earth may be subdued alike unto me and mine forever. See that? So right there, he's telling you, he's coming up with his own doctrine and creation. Keyword creation, because this is what y'all believe in this flat earth creation theory. And he's the angel responsible for this. Verse 13. To surpass not my own age in my doctrine, nor to explain my axioms, but to surpass the understanding of mortals sufficiently unto their knowledge of earthly things, and so appease their curiosity as to the questions they put to ye, my gods. So here he is stating he will not explain how creation came about by saying, nor will I explain my axioms. Axioms meaning that which is self-evident, by not explaining that which is self-evident in creation. That is a method to keep angels and mortals ignorant to the facts on how these things are created. See that? So those who accept his belief and doctrine of this creation story will have more questions than answers to their belief. Now, after the doctrine is established in heaven, they will send angel servants to find mortals who are capable of hearing the voices of angels. And these angels will inspire these mortals to write the words of the Lord God, as stated in the book of Wars, chapter 27, verse 15, where it states, verse 15, Dais, aka Lord God, said, to these mortals go ye and give my doctrine in your own ways, according to the language of mortals, and their capacity to understand. Neither bind I you to my exact words, nor limit you except that I have spoken shall be the foundation. See that? So now Dais is telling his angel servants to go down to mortals and according to the language and capacity to understand, inspire them to write the words of this Lord God, including this flat earth lie. Now, Book of Wars, chapter 28, verse 2, it states, and each of the three gods went to his own chosen mortal, who had power to see and hear spiritual things. And the gods possessed them by their presence, and inspired them to write the words of Anu-Hassad style Lord God, word for word. And they were so written alike and like in the three great divisions of the earth. And copies of them were made and filed in the libraries and in the houses of philosophy of mortals. And this is how the Kemetic and Sumerian creation myth, including your flat earth theory, was manifested on earth through angel communication, through mortals. See that? And to further show how these revelations came to the earth during the 3rd millennium BC, the time of the 23rd arc cycle, this is the time of the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, the New Kingdom, the time of the Sumerian, the Babylonian powers, and all the gods, Baal, Ashtaroth, Osiris, Shemesh, Dagon, all these fallen angels rose to power at the same time period that Anu-Hassad decided to create a false creation account, totally against the Creator's organic creation. Now, Book of Wars against Jehovah, chapter 29, verse 44. It states, verse 44, after this, Osiris prepared a book of generations of men on earth, and these were the substance of the doctrine of Dais, aka Lord God, and his gods, and Osiris and Tian and Sudga, two other angels in service to Dais at this time, departed and came down to the earth to their mortal wards, and by virtue of their presence inspired they their wards, mortals, to write them in mortal words, according to the languages in the places where they lived. And they were so written by these seers, and copies of them were made and put on file in the libraries of the records of the kings and queens of the earth, in Arabia, Africa, Japheth, Asia, China, and Shem, India and Persia. And these became the Bible of that day. See that? So here is how your flat earth theory came about by fallen angels through seers and prophets of that day, being the Egyptian and Babylonian seers, inspired by Anu-Hassad style Lord and God through Osiris. See that? And from these two nations, the Egyptians and Babylonians, gave birth to the Greeks, Romans, Latin, and English, as far as the ideology. And keep in mind, many people were killed off if they spoke against or challenged the established doctrine of these false gods. So the same way in the 14th century, you had those talking about the earth was spherical, but the established doctrine was that the earth was flat. You couldn't come out and speak against that. See that? As stated in the Book of Wars against Jehovah, chapter 30, verse 4 and 5, where it gives you a similar scenario, where it states, and it came to pass that they thus accomplished the will of the Lord God in all these divisions of the earth. The Jehovians, meaning the worshippers of the Creator, being non-resistant, were powerless before them. Kings and queens on the earth accepted these doctrines, meaning the false gods' creation myths, and they marshaled their armies in all directions to establish the Lord God. Now they're out for conquest. Whom he said unto them, as much as ye exalt me in my kingdoms, so will I exalt you. As I behold, ye are become wise and powerful to rule over many on earth, so will I give unto you large kingdoms in heaven. Verse 5. And the false Lord God and his false gods prospered in earth and heaven, as to themselves and their kingdoms, hundreds of years, 900 years. And at that time, the faithless, meaning the followers of the Creator of the earth, were reduced to a small fraction of people, mostly hid away as sheep from wolves. See that? So here you have the enforcement of the doctrine of the Lord God with his false creation, flat earth theory, for you flat earth theorists, while the faithists, those who knew the truth about cosmological order, were killed off, who did not accept the doctrine of this false Lord God. We see that pattern all throughout history. So I'm showing you how this creation doctrine, including the flat earth theory, spread throughout the earth by these false gods. And those who knew the truth, the earth was not flat but globular, were killed off. As stated in the book of OAHSPE, chapter 55, verse 4, where it states, verse 4, when my angels taught man by inspiration that the earth was round instead of flat, ye sent spirits of darkness to inspire the death of my philosophers. See that? And with that, I should say no more, showing you the difference from the Creator's cosmological order from these false gods' cosmological order inspiring a flat earth. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next documentary. Shalom.